Okay, continuing our series on the book of Job. Remember last week we concluded that message with his declaration that though he slay me, yet will I trust him. We are really going to focus on the 18th and 19th chapter today, really Bildad's sermon, as it were, and Job's response. But I did want to briefly give part of his prayer in chapter 13, taking up exactly where we left off last week. But first, to set this up, remember last week in chapter 9, verse 33, Job says, "Nor is there any mediator between us." And we discussed that somewhat. He needs a go-between. He needs a go-between. This is a different context than the mediator that is Jesus Christ in the realm of salvation. Okay. Also, though, in chapter 16, verses 18 and 19, he says, "O earth, do not cover my blood, and let my cry have no resting place. Surely even now my witness is in heaven, and my evidence is on high." Okay, and as we will see in chapter 19, verse 25, he says, "For I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at last on the earth." So we have a mediator, a witness, and a redeemer. Okay, so for all of Job's cries, and for all of his anguish, and for all of his true seeking God, seeking an answer from God, seeking a reply, seeking some sort of hearing, to seek justice. God seems unjust here. God seems unjust. Interestingly, Calvin's sermons, over 150 sermons he gave on the book of Job. And just briefly, these were weekly sermons, so this wasn't a Sunday service. He would give sermons all week, every other week. He would always give a sermon also on a Wednesday, but every other week he would preach all week. And during these weekly services, he gave these sermons on Job. Initially, he defends Job very much. And he also mentions, as we've mentioned, that much of what Job's friends say is biblical. It is biblical. It's wise to a certain extent, but again, it doesn't apply to Job. But he defends Job through and through, really until chapter 23. If you read on the book of Job, Job goes a little too far, I think, for any of our sensitivities. For any true saint, it would seem Job went a bit far. However, for any true saint, any true compassion, any true consideration of who we are and how we might very well complain, such as Job, given these circumstances, I think we should give grace where grace is due. However, so in the midst of all of his cries, in the midst of all of this terrible counseling, you worthless physicians. His friends are worthless physicians, and we will see much more of that take place with his answer to Bildad. But first, let us remember, as we go through these, and we will bring this back up towards the end, that we have a mediator. He's calling for a mediator. He says his witness is in heaven. He has a witness. He needs this witness. He's relying on this witness. So again, this is a hearing. This is a court scene situation. Okay, one, he's got a mediator. He's got a go-between, right? He's got a lawyer, and he's got a witness, and he also has a redeemer. Briefly, the Hebrew for redeemer is goel. Now, this can mean many things. It can mean an avenger, but also it can mean a kinsman redeemer. It's the same word that's given referring to Boaz, essentially, in the book of Ruth. In the account of Ruth, Naomi, and Boaz. Boaz is their kinsman redeemer, one who is legally obligated to take care of the widow, of the family, as it were, to take care of the family. He was the kinsman redeemer, to point toward Jesus Christ. And Job says, "I know my Redeemer lives." Okay, and we will get to that in due time, God willing. So I want to go ahead and jump in to this prayer found in chapter 13 before we consider what Bildad says and then Job's subsequent response. "Only two things do not do to me." He's praying to God, obviously. "Then I will not hide myself from you. Withdraw your hand far from me, and let not the dread of you make me afraid. Then call, and I will answer, or let me speak, and you respond to me. Let's do this. Let's have this hearing, okay? Either you speak, and I will listen, or let me speak, and you answer. How many are my iniquities and sins? Make me know my transgression and my sin. All of his friends are telling him he's guilty of some sort of sin that he might have forgotten. He might have done it when he was very young, and he's forgotten. So he's asking, make me know my transgression and my sin. How many are my iniquities and sins? Why do you hide your face and regard me as your enemy? Again, where are you? Where are you? You are utterly silent right now. I am suffering the counsel of my friends, and who I really need is you, yet you remain far off. Two things do not do to me. Withdraw your hand far from me? Don't do that. Please don't do that. You've already done this. Seems as though you've done this. Why do you hide your face and regard me as your enemy? I'm your saint. I'm your son. Don't hide your face from me. Will you frighten a leaf driven to and fro? And will you pursue dry stubble? This is what I am. This is what I am. Is this what you're going to do? As the deity of heaven and earth, as the God Almighty, are you going to seek a leaf? Are you going to frighten a leaf driven to and fro, who's just meandering about confused in the wind? And will you pursue dry stubble? Just a dry stubble, a reed which is ready to be broken. For you write bitter things against me, and make me inherit the iniquities of my youth. You put my feet in the stocks. You imprison me. You shackle me. You watch closely all my paths. You set a limit for the soles of my feet. And we will return to this, but he's saying you set a limit. You know, at one point, you had hedged me in, protected me from everything that would come in and intrude and invade. You once had a hedge around me. Now you are captivating me. You are putting this hedge around me in order to captivate me from going out into true freedom. Into true freedom. You have shackled my feet. Now, to go to chapter 18. Then Bildad, the Shuhite, answered and said, this is a sermon. Okay, this is something of a sermon. This could be a sermon. It can be something of a terrific sermon given the context. This is out of context and again does not apply to Job. I think a good sermon title for this would be either the tents or the dwelling houses of the wicked. He begins, how long till you put an end to words? Gain understanding, and afterward we will speak. How long till you put an end to words? How long will you just stop speaking and begin finally listening, Job? Okay, your problem is you continue to defend yourself. You could continue to suggest you're an upright man who shuns evil. And this is being done to you unjustly. How long will you continue speaking and not listening? Why are we counted as beasts and regarded as stupid in your sight? Job had kind of said that earlier on in one of his responses. I believe it's in chapter 14, but he essentially equates them to the beasts. You know, your counsel is as the beasts. So he's essentially asking, why are we counted as beasts and regarded as stupid in your sight? Why are we regarded as stupid? Why aren't you listening to us? Maybe our insight can actually be helpful to you. You who tear yourself in anger, shall the earth be forsaken for you, or shall the rock be removed from its place? Essentially what he's saying, justice, absolute justice in this world is done on account of the justice of God. The evil man reaps what he sows. The good man reaps what he sows. Should all of this injustice, should the world pass away just for you, Job, should you be the lone exception in this regard? This justice, the very justice of God, should it affect all but you, Job? Should you be the only one who is bereft of this judgment and of this justice? Going on to verse 7. The steps, so essentially, this depiction is really a depiction of an old man stumbling around, essentially equating this man with Job. He doesn't name him specifically, but this is obviously his depiction of Job. The steps of his strength are shortened, and his own counsel casts him down. This is what he sees on account of Job. For he is cast into a net by his own feet, which is what Job had said. You shackled me, I'm shackled by you. Bildad is saying, you're shackled on your own. And he walks into a snare. The net takes him by the heel, and a snare lays hold of him. A snare is a trap. It's a trap. It can be a trap for foxes and rodents or birds. It's a snare. It's a trap. Or snakes. Whatever. But it's a trap. A noose is hidden for him on the ground, and a trap for him in the road, which is what they would do in this time. Sometimes to capture very dangerous, large beasts that they couldn't fight. Sometimes just to hunt game. This is something they would do. Essentially, hide a noose. You see this. I'm sure some of us, anyway, have seen this depiction where you can't see it. It's kind of hidden under leaves and so forth. And once you step into it, whisks you up into the tree, and you're just left to dangle there until somebody comes by and either kills you or saves you and lets you down. But that's what this noose is. Terrors frighten him on every side and drive him to his feet. Surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him who does not know God. He's telling Job, you don't know God. You don't know anything about God. You know God is just. God must be just. And what Job begins to do is essentially question how true that is. I'm not suffering justly. So is that absolutely true? God, are you absolutely just? This is absolutely unfair. Injustice. I remember as a child, in school, when one person did something wrong, the whole class got punished. And I lamented that greatly. That was severe injustice. Yeah, that's but a weak thing. What's that compared to someone I hold very dear, someone I'm very close to, was raised in an abusive family, began to be sexually abused at the age of 7 or 8 until the middle of their teenage years by their father. I don't know. I don't know if I can think of a worse thing to befall an individual. The trauma, the stress disorder stemming from that is one that I think lasts a lifetime. No matter the good grace of God, this is a true terrible thing on account of somebody else, a true innocent victim, a child. This child suffered based on not her own sin, but on the sin of her father. Absolute injustice. Some are heartbroken. Some people give all of themselves into a relationship till one day it's just not enough for the other one. It would never be enough. It's just not enough. And their whole world is shattered. Their whole world is shattered. They truly invested all of who they were, their heart and their soul, into this relationship. And in a moment, it's all gone. All these days of spending time, all of these days rushing after work to the arms of his beloved are gone. Injustice. Why, God? Why? This is what Job is beginning to cry out. God is just, but as we mentioned last week, perfect justice does not occur in this world. Okay? The evildoers do not reap completely what they sow, as we've mentioned last week with Stalin, Hitler, and so forth. But many righteous also suffer, also do not reap what they sow. They suffer despite their righteousness, not because of it. the wicked are spared justice and absolute condemnation in this world, despite their wickedness, not because of it. Why, God? Bildad is saying, this is not the case, Job. This is not the case, Job. Surely these are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him who does not know God. You do not know God, Job. Surely, I guess, it seemed like you were an upright man, shunning evil. Maybe you knew something about the things of God, but you don't know God. If you knew God, you would know this has befallen you, and this has befallen your sons. Essentially, when he's talking about this dwelling place, this dwelling place will have no tenants. Essentially, Job, you are dying. All of your offspring are dead. All of this judgment has come upon you and your offspring. One of the greatest curses, especially at this time, is to die and just to be childless, period. But to die childless, for your name not to carry on, for your name to literally die in your grave. And Bildad's essentially saying, your house is going to be absolutely vacated because you do not know God. Now Job, we remember in that second verse, Bildad says, how long will you till you put an end to words? Job responds, how long will you torment my soul and break me in pieces with words? You ask how long are you going to continue doing this? Great sermon, Bildad. Great sermon. And given a context, perhaps that's true. And maybe this can be a true sermon from a true man of God who is called to preach such a sermon. But this is tormenting my soul. My house is not the house of the wicked. I am an upright man who shunned evil. And even God attested to that. None of his friends know what we know. That's seen in heaven. The prologue to this book. None of them know. We know. The readers know. So we can anticipate what's going on here. We can realize what's going on here. But Job is saying, Bildad, you're not only wrong, but you're grossly wrong. And you are tormenting my soul by thus being so callous and being so in error. How long will you torment my soul and break me in pieces with words? These 10 times you have reproached me. You are not ashamed that you have wronged me. And if indeed I have erred, my error remains with me. You keep on telling me this. Fine. Let's say that's the case. My error remains with me. Fine. Let's move on. Let's move on. The problem still remains. If indeed you exalt yourselves against me and plead my disgrace against me, know then that God has wronged me and has surrounded me with his net. You told me I'm caught and trapped and snared into a net. And know that God has done this. This isn't on account of the justice and some angel coming down and exacting God's justice. This is God himself. So, if indeed you exalt yourselves against me and plead my disgrace against me, know then that God has wronged me and has surrounded me with his net. He does not know it is not God who has wronged him. We know that, okay? He allowed it to happen. He ordained it to come to pass for Job's own sanctification and for the glory of God, okay? But according to Job, God has done this, and he has permitted it. So let us embrace this to an extent. If I cry out concerning wrong, I am not heard. If I cry aloud, there is no justice. I keep crying out to silence. There is no justice here. I'm suffering. I've lost everything, and I myself am withering away into the grave. I'm going to lie in the dust now. He has fenced up my way so that I cannot pass, and he has set darkness in my paths. So again, he had put up a hedge of protection, and now he's fenced me in. I can't be free from this. I'm seeking justice. I'm seeking freedom. I'm seeking liberty. Where's the liberty? Where's the freedom I had God has done this, my friends. He has stripped me of my glory and taken the crown from my head. Remember, he was very well known. He was very prosperous. He was very rich. And so essentially he was the leader in his area. So he has taken the crown from my head and he has stripped me of my glory. He breaks me down on every side and I'm gone. There is not one side, there is not one place, there is not one dimension of my being that is not suffered and cast down. I am gone. My hope, he is uprooted like a tree. He has not cut it down. He has not cut it down from the bottom. He has uprooted this tree. He also has kindled his wrath against me, and he counts me as one of his enemies, as he was saying in his prayer that we had seen in chapter 13. His troops come together and build up the road against me. They camp all around my tent. He has removed my brothers far from me, and my acquaintances are completely estranged from me. This is fascinating. Many times, when a person truly is in suffering, and that's all they'll talk about, people don't want to be around them. Sadly, they still need people. They still need helpers. They still need counselors. They still need support. Yet when people will get overwhelmed by a suffering person because they're wrapped up in their suffering, and they won't listen to reason sometimes. I think we're all guilty of this, though, to some extent. I think sometimes, I've been somewhat guilty of it fairly recently, where, as I mentioned last week, when you're here to comfort another, comfort them and suffer with them. What that person doesn't need is a bunch of theological underpinnings in which they know, and to tell them to continually seek God when they already are, and so forth. So, all of his acquaintances are removed from him. Nobody's calling, nobody's writing Job any longer. My relatives have failed, and my close friends have forgotten me, including you, my 3 friends. Those who dwell in my house and my maidservants count me as a stranger. I am a stranger in my own home. I'm an alien in their sight. I call my servant, but he gives no answer. I beg him with my mouth. These who were so willing servants, willingly serving a wonderful master, just much like Boaz, a wonderful master. They love serving Job. But now that he's suffering, God must be judging him. So I call my servant, but he gives no answer. I beg him with my mouth. I'm a master and I'm forced to beg my servants. My breath is offensive to my wife, and I'm repulsive to the children of my own body. My breath, remember, curse God and die. Will you continue holding your integrity, Job? Curse God and die. My breath is offensive to my wife. She wants me to curse God and die. And I am repulsive to the children of my own body. Even young children despise me. I arise, and they speak against me. The respect that is meant to be given to an elder from the young is not taking place because of this perceived judgment of God taking place in my life. All my close friends abhor me, much like you all. And those whom I love have turned against me. My bone clings to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. A very well-known saying, but ultimately he's saying he hasn't even escaped. Ultimately, he is just, he's deteriorating. All he is essentially right now is skin and bones. Have pity on me. Have pity on me, O you, my friends, for the hand of God has struck me. It's true. That's true. Why do you persecute me as God does? That is not true. And are not satisfied with my flesh. Is this not good enough for you? Is this not good enough for you, this suffering? If this is a judgment of God, is this not good enough for you? Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book, that they were engraved on a rock with an iron pen and lead forever. Essentially, what he's saying is, I would be to God, this account is recorded for all of history. And here we are, in the 21st century, thousands and thousands of years later, reading this specific cry to God. Oh, that my words were written. Oh, that they were inscribed in a book. I want this to be remembered. I'm about to die, but I don't want my case to die with me. Let this case remain. Let this cause remain. That those righteous who suffer in the days to come might reflect on my own suffering. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and he shall stand at last on the earth. Let's pause briefly. I know that my Redeemer lives. My mediator, my witness, my Redeemer lives. I know that he lives. And he shall stand at last on the earth. What he's picturing really here is one who stands in heaven and on earth. The Almighty, the Mighty One of heaven and of earth. He will at last stand on the earth. And after my skin is destroyed, this I know, that in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another, how my heart yearns within me. Without going into too much detail, there's much conjecture with this portion. Many, I think, completely unduly suppose that what he's not confessing to is the resurrection of the body. This must have been a much later development. We don't see much of that in the Old Testament mention of this resurrection body. So without getting into that, let me just make the point very clear that he says, in my flesh I will see God. This is not metaphoric. This is true. So he's essentially, this revelation was given to Job. Okay, so I know my Redeemer lives. He shall stand on the earth at last. And after my skin is destroyed, it's being destroyed now, but after my skin is absolutely consumed, this I know, that in my flesh, after my skin is destroyed, after my flesh is destroyed, I know I will be given a new flesh. He will raise me in spirit and in body, that I might see him with my own eyes. And my eyes, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another, how my heart yearns within me. This is what I greatly anticipate. He's saying all this, and then he just stops with the doxology. How my heart yearns within me. I seek this justice, but now I seek this moment to see my Redeemer in the flesh with my own eyes. If you should say, how shall we persecute him, since the root of the matter is found in me? Be afraid of the sword for yourselves, for wrath brings the punishment of the sword, that you may know. There is a judgment. Okay. So, he admits, he confesses to this mediator, to this witness, and to this Redeemer. Now, again, in the context in which is taking place in Job, it's not a salvific mediator, witness, and Redeemer. So, let us embrace the fact that our mediator, our witness in heaven, and our Redeemer begins in salvation, but he continues in sanctification. Christ remains our mediator. When we have a case to take to God, when we cry aloud to our Father on high, our mediator, our great high priest, prays for us, and he is our witness, advocating. He is our advocator. He is truly our lawyer, and he is the witness, praying to God, see me, pour out your grace through me, glorify them as you glorify me, and as I glorify you, glorify them. He is also our witness, and he is our great Redeemer. He is the one responsible. He is the one responsible for our care. He is the one who has purchased us by his blood but he is the one who will continue to redeem us to himself all our days long. The righteous suffer. Is there injustice with God? No. Is there injustice in this world on account of sin? Yes. The saint who is dwelling in the light, in the dwelling place of God, in the light of the Lamb, will find moments of darkness, but it isn't condemning darkness, but it's somewhat meandering about as a blind man, seemingly continually falling in the ditches and falling in the valleys. Christ is our mediator. He is our witness and he is our redeemer. It may take more than a moment to cry out. It may take more than just a few comforting friends. What it takes is the Word of God himself. And perhaps you'll remain silent for a time, for your own edification, for your own sanctification. He has many reasons, but it is always providential and it is always according to his sovereign goodwill toward his saints. So, be real, be true in your prayers to him. Don't be a hypocrite. When you truly are crying out, even thinking and believing, perhaps there is injustice with God. Let us take our case to God himself, because we know we have a mediator, and we have a true witness, and we have a profound and effective Redeemer. He does not leave the cross powerless. The cross of Jesus Christ continues to minister to his saints. Lastly, is there injustice to the righteous? In this world, I hope we can see now, yes. Is there ultimate justice in the end? Yes. Is there injustice? Is there suffering? The saint of God, yeah. Yes, there is. What about the cross of Jesus Christ? Was that just? Was that fair? He was absolutely sinless. The man was born blind. It wasn't on account of his sin, it wasn't on account of his other parents' sin, or his parents' sin. We saw that the invalid man seemed to become paralyzed on account of his sin. Sometimes we suffer on account of our own sin. Sometimes we do not. Was Jesus' crucifixion justified? The answer is yes and no. Intrinsically, being the Son of God, absolutely sinless, the wages of sin is death. Jesus had no justifiable reason to die. However, being imputed with all of our sins is absolutely just, necessary, and altogether fair. But if he will ascend on a Roman cross to suffer for us, may we look to our suffering servant, to the true suffering servant of God, as we ourselves are suffering servants of God. And always embrace the fact that no matter what travails we might be walking, what kind of tempestuous seas we might be sailing, what kind of storms and gray clouds might be descending fiercely upon us, our Christ is our mediator, he is our witness, and he is our Redeemer. Let us rejoice in him. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee, God of glory, Lord of love. Hearts unfold like flowers before thee, opening to like clouds above. Melt the clouds of sin and sadness, drive the dark of doubt away. Giver of immortal gladness, fill us with the light of day. When we are in the darkness, when we are saints cast down, we can't see his light. It would be joyful to the Lamb on high, to our mediator, to our witness, to our Redeemer. Okay? Let us cry out to him, my God, why have you forsaken me? Until at last he answers. And I promise you, if you are his, he will answer. You may not like his answer, and that is fine. And we will deal with that, as that comes. But he will answer. He does not remain silent forever, as we will see. We're going to progress fairly quickly after this one. Pretty much jump to Elihu. But I hope we've seen the pattern going on here, and I hope we don't judge Job too harshly, as we wouldn't want ourselves to be judged too harshly. Let us embrace and glorify God in the light of the world, knowing that we were born blind, and now we see. We truly see. Let us seek the Father of lights, now and forever. Praise God.